Hello and welcome to a new video. My name is Herwig Juster and today we discuss the third and last part of our technical data sheet series. In this video we will have a closer look at the flame characteristics and the processing condition of plastics. Okay, let's get started. So just a quick reminder to the previous parts. Part 1, physical properties and mechanical properties, and part 2 was the impact properties and the thermal properties. Both parts are linked in the description below. Okay, let's start with the flame characteristics. What do we have here on a typical data sheet? So we have the flammability class rating based on the UL 94. We have the glow wire flammability index, and we have the oxygen index. And you can see here again the example of Amodel A1133, so 33% glass fiber reinforced PPA, and we can see here the flame rating measured at 3.2 mm thickness as a horizontal burning, so HB, and the test method is the UL 94. There's also then the from UL the yellow cards, the so-called yellow cards, where different thicknesses are measured, and then the flammability ranking is made. So in this case we always have a HB ranking. So let's have a closer look at the UL 94 flammability ratings. So we have different classes starting from UL 94 HB down to V0 and 5 VB and 5 VA. So the easiest to reach is the UL 94 HB rating, and the most difficult rating to achieve is the 94 5 VA, because when you look at the definitions that you see already here, with the most difficult one, the flame, when you ignite the sample, the flame has to stop, and also in a certain time. For example, for V0 we have a vertical burn. The burning stops within 10 seconds, and with 5 VB and 5A we have also the difference between that we have a hole in the black or not. Okay, UL 94 HB, so it's the so-called horizontal burning test. As the name says, we have the sample specimen, which is defined in length and thickness. Then we have which is placed horizontal. Then we have the flame, which is also defined, and also the distance flame to the sample. And then the sample is ignited, and then it is observed how the flame continues. And the vertical, as it says, we have the sample in a vertical manner oriented, and again all defined distance and the flame. And here we have strict criteria in the individual flame time. So for the V0 we have below 10 seconds. Then we have the total flame time, so you always measure 5 specimens then in seconds. And when you look, we have below 10 for V0, that means you have below 50 seconds. Then the glowing time, and also there's also placed a cotton layer, and when the sample drops on the cotton, it can ignite or not. And for example, in the V0 it is not allowed to ignite the cotton, whereas in V2 it is allowed. Okay, and then there is the UL 94 vertical burning test for 5 VA and 5 VB. It's basically the main difference is that you use a test plate and start burning from underneath. And then you have again the criteria, like for example that there is a burn through hole of any of the black specimen, and in the 5 VA this is not allowed, whereas in the 5 VB this is allowed. Okay, let's continue with the glow fire flammability index according to the IEC 6695212. So it's a important information for electric and electronics, especially for cable and wire application. What you do here, you have here your copper wire, which is electrically heated, and then you touch with this glow wire your plastic specimen, and then there are again criteria like you look on the ignition of the plaque and also the burning time or the glowing time after you remove the wire. And again, there is a cotton on the bottom, and when the sample starts dripping, you also look if the cotton ignites or not. And for example, when we have a specimen with the thickness of 3 millimeter and it shows ignition at 850 degrees C, then we have the GWFI is 850/3.0. And a part of the flammability index, there's also the glow wire ignition. So it's basically the same time. You have the glow wire, the plastic specimen. However, this temperature is always 25 degrees C above the temperature where no ignition occurred. Then the third one of the flame characteristics is the oxygen index according to ASTM D2663. So here we measure the minimum oxygen concentration, which supports burning, a combustion of the plastic. So how this whole looks, so we have here a so-called glass chimney, and here we see the transparent sample, most probably polycarbonate or polystyrene. We ignite the sample, and in this chimney we have a oxygen nitrogen concentration, and then step by step you start reducing the oxygen until the flame is extinguished, and then you get this oxygen index. And let's have a look at different plastics, how the so-called limiting oxygen index looks like. So this is measured then in percent, and when we have a LOI of below 21, it is expected that the flame continues burning in an open air situation, whereas when we are above 30 to 40, then we have a self-extinguishing effect, which is really important for aircraft or public transportation, for example. And when we look now here at the different materials, at POM, for example, we are below 20, polystyrene, PPT are on the border to 20, so they will expect to continue burning an open air situation. Whereas when we look at high performance polymers such as polyaryl eta ketones, polysulfones and PPS, they're way above 30, so they can really fulfill the self-extinguishing property. And here's also written the LOI level needed for a V0 at 1.5 millimeter is this above 30 to 40%. Okay, these were the flame characteristics. Now we continue with the processing conditions. So usually processing conditions are meant for injection molding. And here again the example of our model A1133. So you start chronologically with the drying process. So you need a drying temperature and the drying time. So here we have the 120 degrees C in 4 hours, and also a suggestion for the maximum moisture in the compound before you start molding. So it's in this case 0.03 to 0.06. So in this range, then also not below and also not above, but right there, it's good for your molding operations. Yeah, and then we need the different temperature zones on the plasticizing unit, and also on the mold, and also the melt temperature itself. So here we see it should be between 321 and 343 degrees C, and the mold temperature is in the range of 135 degrees C. So this shows us already, okay, we need here oil heating system in the mold, and also here from the temperatures. We also have to check always where is the degradation temperature of this plastic compound, for example, with polyamides and PPAs. It is in the range of 350, so we have to be more here on the lower side. And yeah, preparation for molding operations is important, especially the moisture with hydrophilic materials. And here I have a table showing you the different moisture absorption. So for example, here we have 23 degrees C at 50% relative humidity and 23 degrees C in saturation. So it's really when the material is soaked up with water. You see with polycarbonate we have 0.15, and here we have in saturation 0.35, whereas when we look at the aliphatic nylons, we have in middle here much more, 2% in 50% relative humidity and 8% in saturation. And this shows you how important it is to have a properly conditioned material for the operation, and then also afterwards in use, because it is also related to the all over performance and dimensions and properties of the part. Okay, this were the how to read the technical data sheet, the properties. Let's finish with a conclusion. So TDS are a useful tool for comparing similar grades of plastics from different suppliers, for example. And together we have to say that also the test condition rarely correspond to the product service conditions, so how your final part is performing. So this you have to keep always in mind. Then it's also not recommended to use datasheet to compare significantly different materials, because different materials, they have different failure criteria, so this can be a trap. And when we look at the plastic material suppliers, so they always provide you with a basic material data sheet based on standardized testing, and there is also no standard for data sheet itself, so every material supplier can put in the one or the other value. However, when you have a good plastic material supplier, he will support you with the interpretation of the numbers, what this means for his materials, and he has also additional data which he can provide you, especially multi-point data and long-term, and this allows you to evaluate your application a better way. And this is also one of the challenges in polymer material selection, the sourcing of data, reliable data. We have single point data, multi-point data, short and long-term data, and here it's really the TDS a starting point. However, it can be used as a discussion base for obtaining more other specific data. Then another challenge in material selection is defining the requirements. So although we have then the test data, but are those then in context to the real requirements of the application? And it's always important to understand the fundamental relationship between internal structure of the material and the properties. So what is really going on, and there multi-point data are helpful when you think of the dynamic mechanical analysis. Okay, if you want to learn more about polymer engineering topics, I highly can recommend you my blog, findoutaboutplastics.com, as well as the topic polymer material selection. I have 2 online courses, one general and one specific for electrification. And I will link both the blog and the online courses below in the description box. Okay, with that, I would like to thank you for watching, and till next time. Bye.